Welcome everyone to this hybrid meeting of the Executive. Please note that the meeting is being broadcast and recorded. For clarity, voting is only permitted by the members who are present in the room. I don't think there's any members who are not present in the room and online. So any member joining the meeting remotely are able to participate in the debate but are not able to vote. Other than that, the usual rules apply. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence. Are there any apologies?
Yes, Leader Helen Purnell.
Helen Purnell? Okay, thank you. I can see the members of the committee are in attendance and their names will be recorded in the minutes. There's no one on remote. Okay, thank you. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. The full text for declarations of interest is set out in the agenda. If any member has a disclosable pecuniary interest or an affected interest to declare, please indicate and I'll come to you in turn. Has anyone got anything to declare? Thank you. There are no declarations, but may I remind you, everyone, that if you can make a declaration at any time should it occur to you at a later point. If anyone declares a disclosable pecuniary interest, we'll need to leave the room, the meeting, when we get to that relevant item. Agenda item 3, minutes of the previous meeting. Can I ask members if they are happy to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 14th of November 2023?
Yep.
You agree that they're correct record? Yeah. Can I ask for a seconder?
Councillor Jeffries to second.
Thank you. If all members are in favour of approving the minutes, can you please raise your hand? Thank you. Agenda item 4 are urgent items of business. Are there any urgent items of business?
No, none notified.
Thank you. Agenda item 5, Capital Programme 2024-25 to 26-27. I invite Calvin Orr, Head of Finance and Business Services, to present this item, please.
It will be on myself, Leader.
Oh, right.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Stuart McKellar, Executive Director, Resources. So this is the first of 2 reports on tonight's agenda dealing with the draft budget proposals for the 24-25 financial year. So this one deals with the capital programme proposals, and that's the spending on the major infrastructure which is managed by the Council. So spending on capital is funded by a variety of sources, so that can be capital grants from central government, developer contributions through either Section 106 or a community infrastructure levy, or by additional borrowing. Because the latter has an impact on the Council's revenue budget, then the desire most years is to keep the level of capital expenditure as low as practicable while continuing to invest appropriately in the Council's infrastructure assets. So the proposals before members for consideration this evening tonight include just under £13 million of new proposed expenditure for next year, and of that, 4.5 would be funded by external sources, with the remaining £8.3 million falling to the Council to resource. And the largest schemes within the proposed programme relate to highways infrastructure investment and to investment in the planned maintenance of our property assets that we hold across the borough. So other than that, Chairman, I'm happy to take any questions on the proposals.
Councillor Bidwell, yes. With the government cancelling the HS2 extension, there is money available for local authorities to fix potholes. Are we involved in bidding for that?
We've had an allocation already, Councillor Bidwell. It's included in the proposals. It's around £250,000 in terms of the 24-25 programme, which is not unhelpful, but it's a fairly small scale comparison with the Council's own proposals.
Are there any other questions? Thank you. Can I ask somebody to move these recommendations, please?
Councillor Neil, I'd like to second these recommendations.
Thank You can ask someone to second them.
Councillor Gilby, I will second.
Thank you. Would the mover like to speak?
Yes, I'd just like to say thank you very much for the report prepared for the executive this evening. This is the start of a conversation about our budget proposals for the coming years, and thank you to the officers for the hard work that's gone into it. I recognise that it is a challenging backdrop for the recommendations that have been put forward, and more will probably be said later.
Would the seconder like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Leader. I would simply like to observe that quite clearly one of the most common problems that we all hear is the issue of road maintenance. And I'm very proud that we're able to use this budget as a chance to allocate extra funding towards road maintenance. It's clearly one of the top issues for people on the doorstep, and I'm very proud to be able to second this as a move towards a greater investment. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to welcome the improvements to the Waymead facility for people, adults with learning disabilities. It's a great facility and it would be good to see it improve in the long term. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Can I ask the mover?
I have nothing further to add, just to thank my colleagues for their comments.
Can I then ask all those in favour to raise their hands? Thank you. We'll then move on to agenda item 6, which is the revenue budget 2024-25, and I invite Arthur Parker, Chief Accountant, to present the item.
That would me again, Chair, I'm afraid. Yes. So this report deals with the revenue budget draft proposals, so that's the spending on day-to-day council services. So for this report, we have to make quite a series of assumptions around the level of resources that will be available to the council, because the local government finance settlement will not be announced until we understand the 19th of December this year, which means that we will not find out until this time next week what the actual confirmation of the different grants are. But the report sets out various assumptions that we've made in setting out the context for the proposals which are before you this evening. So as with all local authorities, all businesses and all households across the country, we're seeing a big increase in inflationary costs. So that's one of the biggest items of just over £5 million just to provide a standstill of the current services that we provide. In addition to that, budget pressures inevitably do come forward, and the draft budget proposals include £5.6 million of budget pressures in addition to inflation. Recognising that we will not get sufficient government grant to cover those additional costs, then the proposals include savings of £5.5 million as well to help achieve a balanced position. At this moment in time, we're in a position where the gap before any council tax increase is considered is £6.9 million. The council has a medium-term strategy of using its reserves to help balance the budget over a period of time, so therefore the objective is not necessarily to get down to a fully balanced position. There's a consideration that members will need to give in the February proposals around to what extent it would be reasonable to draw down from reserves, but there's an expectation there will be some drawdown from reserves in setting the budget for 24-25. So just turning to the recommendations, they do also refer to some technical items which members are asked to note, and in terms of the Treasury Management Strategy to request the Governance and Audit Committee, as would normally happen, to do a detailed review into that before the final budget proposals are published. So it also recognises the role of the Schools Forum and the Executive Member for Children and Young People in approving the schools budget proposals for 24-25. And the report also requests that the council tax base be set at 49,694, and that's a key figure in terms of how much income will be realised by the level of council tax that members decide on between now and February. And final item to draw to your attention is the the Council's constitution requires any write-off of debts over £50,000 to be reported to the Executive for formal consideration. There is one such recommendation in this report. It's for commercial property debt, which all attempts to recover that have been exhausted. There is no further option other than to write it off. It's the first time I can remember in 7 years such a recommendation have been made, so it's a very, very unusual situation for Executive to be asked to approve that, but there is such a recommendation in the report this year. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Gill.
Thank you, Leader. I'd like to ask for reassurance for all the residents who may be tuned in that as far as our investment policy is concerned, we have not lessened the high standards that we follow, that we still take great care in choosing where our investments go. Please could we have that reassurance?
Very happy to provide that, Councillor Gilby. Yeah, when we are undertaking treasury transactions, we are required under the CIPFA code to prioritise the security of any funds that we invest over the returns which we can secure from them. So on that basis, we only invest in the highest rated organisations.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to ask about the proposals in the budget relating to the libraries.
I think Kevin Gibbs, the Executive Director for Delivery, is probably best placed to answer that one, Leader.
Thank you, Leader. Within the budget proposals, there is a proposal to review the libraries and customer services management structure. Phase 1 of the programme will develop community hub libraries and will merge the leadership teams of customer services and libraries. And it's expected that a saving of one head of service will result from that change. Within year 2, we'll be reviewing the team leader structure, and we would expect to lose 2 team leaders in that structure. We recognise that behind those proposals, there's 2 pieces of feedback that I would share with the Executive. Firstly, that staff have feedback that they see the service as a customer-facing service centre, focused on servicing customers and helping them access council services, blue badges, bus passes, payments and sundry items. Secondly, that we should minimise lone working, therefore focus staff at key locations and use Open Plus to provide extended hours. Within these proposals, no library site will close, no member of staff will be asked to work outside their normal contracted group areas, so that's the Northern Group, Central Group and Southern Group, and any changes in working will be subject to the normal consultation. So in summary, the proposal isn't to close any library sites, but to look to the management of the library service to focus it in terms of providing services to the community and providing that as part of our customer service offer.
Thank you. Another question? Bidwell?
Yeah, thanks, Leader.
Sorry, Leader. It was just to follow up as we've got the officer on the libraries. So apologies to Councillor Bidwell for jumping ahead of his question. Just for further clarification for my peers, Kevin, could you also just touch on the home service part of it, please? Thank you.
Yes, Leader. So as we look to see how we focus the service in terms of service delivery, as I said, we will be focusing on the management of the management structure. But obviously, some of the managers in the service do provide some of the frontline services. So as we reduce the number of hours, we will need to see where we can make compensating savings. So refocusing the home library service and/or withdrawing the home library service will be part of the proposals to ensure that we have the maximum number of staffed hours, but also that we use technology to be able to deliver and replace some of those services. So, for instance, we're able to do e-books, so we can deliver books directly to people to browsers and to reading devices that people will be able to borrow. We'll also be encouraging people to in effect be part of communities which will able to support them. So very much looking for community support in terms of that refocusing of the limited resources that we have, but the wide remit of making sure that people have a space that they can come to and be part of a community.
Thank you. Councillor Bidwell?
Well, just before I ask my question, just a suggestion really that the home service is vital to fight against loneliness. Could we not talk to the Link service and maybe expand their services for sit-down and reading with outreach, people that need books delivered at the moment? That would be a suggestion, not for me, but for you. But my main question regarding the capital programme is, delighted to see external funding there. I've had a look, but it's probably in there and I've missed it. Where would that external funding come from? And I note that, I'm presuming that it's grants of some sort, because in 26-27 it's significantly lower than what it is at the moment.
Yeah, we receive a variety of grants to support both the revenue and capital budgets. They do come from a variety of sources, and they tend to be announced 1 year or 2 years in advance. So therefore, it wouldn't necessarily be a matter of significant concern if the level of grant resource is seen at this moment to be much lower than the years ahead, because it is not always announced that far in advance.
Are there any other questions? No, thank you. Can I ask a member to move the recommendations 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27 and 28, please?
Councillor Neil, happy to move those recommendations.
Thank you. Can I ask for a seconder, please?
Councillor Jeffries would second.
Thank you. Would the mover like to speak, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you for all the work that has gone into preparing the draft budget. We do not underestimate the challenges that we are all facing. Nationally, 1 in 5 councils are expected to declare bankruptcy in the next 12 months. And just to be clear, Bracknell Forest is not one of them, but we do have tough choices to make. We are not in a position of having to propose to close or withdraw non-essential services, and we'll reach a balanced position, but likely not without the use of reserves. We recognise this is not where we would like to be, but we are in this position thanks to a well-managed council and commit to this continuing. We've committed to being a transparent council, and for this budget we will have a focus on consultation and a different approach to previous years, and we invite residents to take part over the coming weeks and look forward to hearing their views. Thank you.
Would the seconder like to speak?
Just to add, Chair, that thank you to the officers for all the hard work they've put into this. We are coming out of an era of COVID, and although COVID was a couple of years ago, these are the ripple effects which have had an impact on us and I suppose a majority of councils countrywide. We are doing our level best to ensure that we keep afloat and we deliver the essential services that are needed to the community. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak?
Thank you, Leader. I would like to simply reiterate the point that whilst we couldn't claim that this is an ideal budget, it's quite clear that we are in unprecedented times. The fact that, as Councillor Neil said, we are not one of those 5 is a testament to sound financial stewardship, and I must pay thanks to all the officers that have been involved in this very long process. And indeed, to echo what Councillor Neil said, one of the important differences is that we want to involve the residents in this activity. There are tough choices to be made in this budget, but we are working with residents, not at them, and I would certainly encourage everyone to get involved in this process. The waves are high out there, but we get through it all together. Thank you.
I would like to thank all the staff for coming and meeting, and to all the meetings they've done to determine the options of the potential savings, and for coming back and making the savings that have already been made. And this budget is to increase, we're going to get a balanced budget eventually by increasing efficiency, increasing income, taking some from the balances, but once you spend balances you can never get them back. This is all done rather than reducing the frontline services as much as possible. I would like to thank everybody for involving us in all these discussions. It is a very hard budget, But I think residents can now report and consult online, and I again reiterate it would be really good if they did so, but also we will be coming round the community centres and in your shopping centres and trying to get you to respond on the app and information as well. So we take in the council to the residents as we promised to try and get your input into what is going ahead and will be voted on in February. Thank you. Anyone else want to speak? Can I ask the mover to wind up?
Just to reiterate my thanks and, oh, no.
Sorry.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say thank you so much to everyone for this budget, and also especially thanks to the Officer for the People Directorate, because although we have had to make some tough choices, I think there's some really good initiatives coming in the next couple of years, which I think will be greatly appreciated by the residents, despite the fact that we've had a tough budget to write. So thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak? Can I ask the mover to...
Just want to reiterate our thanks from the whole executive to all council officers for the work that's been done, and we look forward to hearing from residents over the coming weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask all those in favour of the recommendations to raise their hands? Thank you. Agenda item 7, making the adoption of the Winkfield Neighbourhood Plan 2022-2020. It doesn't say here, but I think it's a long one. 2037. I've got it on my notes. 2022 to 37. Can I invite Andrew Hundrick, Executive Director for Place Planning and Regeneration, to present this, please?
Thank you, Leader. So the purpose of this report is to seek the Executive's approval to make the Winkfield Neighbourhood Plan. Winkfield Parish Council is the qualifying body for the purposes of neighbourhood planning in Winkfield, and they have developed and prepared this plan with their local community. In July 2022, the parish submitted the plan to the Borough Council, and we confirmed that it conformed with normal statutory requirements set out in the Town and Country Planning Act. And following that, the plan was subject to consultation and then subject to an independent examination. In July, we received the examiner's report, and that agreed the plan could proceed to referendum with modifications, and those modifications were made. And the referendum took place earlier in November on the 23rd, and the majority of those voting, which is the test, voted in favour of the plan. So once made, following the meeting tonight, if made, the plan will then be used in the determination of planning applications within the Winkfield area. Happy to take any questions, Leader.
Thank you. Are there any questions? None? Can I ask someone to move these recommendations, please? Councillor Gill. Can I ask someone to second the recommendations, please?
Councillor Jeffries to second.
Thank you. Would Councillor Gilby like to speak? Mover like to speak, please?
Thank you, Leader. There's not an awful lot to say here because the brunt of the work was carried out by Winkfield Parish Council, but nevertheless I would like to take a moment to thank the officers in the borough team who liaised with the Parish Council during this process. This plan, I should say, was approved by referendum, was approved by the people of Winkfield on an 89% yes vote. So whilst we hold the power, I would say that the democratic will here should take primacy, and I'd urge my colleagues to approve this plan. Thank you.
The second would like to speak.
Just to reiterate Councillor Gilby's point on the turnout, we had a total number of 1,245 votes, with a favour of 1,097 and 142 against. So I think the people of Winkfield have actually spoken to this. So thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? Would the mover like to wind up?
No, thank you, Leader.
Can all those in favour of this recommendation please show by raising their hand? Thank you. Agenda item 8. Personal budgets policy. I invite Gráinne Siggins, Executive Director of People, to present the item. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Leader, and thank you, colleagues. We already have something called a personal budgets policy, which has been in place with the Council since 2015. Now, personal budgets are something that's in place so that parents of disabled children, where there is an education, health and care plan in place, can request a personal budget in order to meet the needs of the child as outlined in the educational health and care plan. So what a personal budget does is bring together a range of funding sources from education, health and care, and enables a more holistic view of the child and young person's need. So this is a revision to an existing policy and has been brought forward as part of our ongoing improvement to SEND services.
Thank you. Can I ask any questions? Can I just ask a question? It said here that some parents could top up provision if they wish to. Is this new, or has that always been the case?
The changes outlined in the document are in section 1.2. So if your reference is to an item in there, it is an update. It's often further clarity. So top-ups, it's the same with any personal budget. If somebody wants to top it up to have a more significant offer, then the choice is there for people to do so. The very nature of a personal budget gives more flexibility as to the type of service and provision that somebody can actually purchase to meet the needs of the child.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Can I invite a member to move the recommendations, please? 2.1 and 2.2. Councillor Bailey.
I'm happy to move those recommendations, Leader.
Can I ask for someone to second them, please? Councillor Wright.
I'm happy to second them, Leader.
Would the mover like to speak?
Just briefly, it's very little to add to what Gráinne has said. I've been made aware of this throughout. It makes absolute sense to me, and I wholeheartedly endorse the recommendation.
Thank you. Would the seconder like to speak?
I'd just like to echo what Councillor Bailey said. I think it's the right thing to do to update the policy.
Would anyone else speak? Would you like to wind up?
Nothing further to add, Leader. Nothing further to add, Leader.
Can all those in favour of these recommendations please raise their hand? Thank you. Item 9, Serious Violence Strategy 2024 to 27. And I again invite Gráinne Siggins, Executive Director of People, to present the item.
Thank you, Leader. The document you have in front of you is the Bracknell Forest First Serious Violence Strategy for the period specified. So the strategy has been developed in response to the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Act 2022, which introduced a serious violence duty on authorities within local government areas. As part of the duty, a strategy is required to be prepared, published and implemented. It is a partnership document and has actually been developed in partnership via the Community Safety Partnership specifically. This is very much a commitment to work effectively across organisational and professional boundaries to deliver a truly multi-agency approach. The document or strategy has been prepared on the back of the development of a strategic needs assessment which outlines the drivers for serious violence in the borough. So the strategy is contained in the document itself. The recommendations do actually note about endorsement of the strategy and to recognise that a more detailed action plan is required to be developed and for it to be approved by myself in consultation with the lead portfolio holder, who's Councillor Iskander Jeffries.
Thank you. Can I ask for any questions, please? Can I just ask, do we know when the action plans are likely produced? I mean, is it years or months or?
Next steps are included in the report, so it doesn't include a timeline, but that's something that myself and Councillor Jeffries can set to officers. So there's no specific time frame, but we can provide a time frame, for example, within a 3-month period. But it does need to go through its various different stages. But if I say by the 31st of March.
Thank you. Can I ask, are there any other questions? Can I ask for someone to move these recommendations, please?
Councillor Jeffries to move it.
Thank you. Can I ask for a seconder?
Councillor Bibbold, second.
Thank you. Can I ask the mover to speak, please?
I'd like to thank my colleagues within the council, the officers for quite a big piece of work that they've put together, and I commend them for all the hard work that they've put into this. I'd also like to point out that this is not just a single departmental document. It involves lots of moving parts. It involves lots of additional departments and involvement and collaboration with them. And I think it's a great start for Bracknell. I don't see anything negative in it. And lastly, it's required by law. So I'd like to ask my fellow executives to endorse this. And again, thank you to the officers for all this hard work that's gone into this proposal.
Thank you. Can I ask the seconder to speak, please?
Yeah, thanks, Leader. Well, I think my colleagues already said it. It's law. We have to do it. I think I'm astounded how quickly you've been able to put something together since the Act was only passed in 2022. And it must have been a huge effort. Well done. And look forward to the action plan in March.
Would anyone else like to speak? Councillor Gilby?
Thank you, Leader. Just a brief comment. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, I don't think thanks can ever be given enough, Gronya, to you and your team for this effort. I would also commend what is the beginning of an action plan. As colleagues will know, I think we can all despise a report that doesn't include a clear idea of how it will be implemented, and I think the action plan that is included within this is a great start towards that effort. So thank you as always.
Councillor Bailey?
Yes, at the danger of being repetitious, as a former senior police officer and a founder member of the Thames Valley Safer Communities Partnership, I welcome this move. Collaboration, partnership working is the only way forward. I've been impressed with all that I've seen so far with some of those activities currently in Bracknell Forest Council, and I look forward to working collaboratively and positively with this, and I congratulate the officer team for delivering it to us. Thank you.
Can I just say it was really sober reading to find out what affects all these young people or whatever of wage group to go into serious violence, and there are so many reasons why they might choose that path, and we really need to make sure that we put in as many preventative measures as possible. Does anyone? Can I ask Councillor Jeffries to sum up, please?
In summary, it's a very comprehensive and complex piece of work, and I think the officers have done superbly well in bringing all these cogs together. Thank you again, and I look forward to supporting this as it goes forward in the future under my portfolio. Thank you.
Can I ask all those in favour of these recommendations to raise their hands, please? Thank you. Agenda item 10, community support, the winter update. And I invite Abby Thomas, the Assistant Director of the Chief Exec, to present this item, please.
Thank you, Leader. There's been significant support in place for residents facing financial hardship over the last 12 months. That has been delivered directly by the council, but we've also worked closely with the voluntary and community sector, which has enabled us to reach many more residents across the borough. We recognise that residents still face significant financial hardship, particularly at this time of year, moving into the winter period and through Christmas. and therefore the Financial Hardship Action Plan has been reviewed in order to extend support, and particularly to look at how we can further improve and develop signposting to support, and also developing links to mental health support that's available to residents across the borough. Much of the activity within the action plan is funded by the Household Support Grant, which is not expected to be extended by the DWP beyond March. Therefore, at the end of March, the Financial Hardship Action Plan will come to an end. However, the funding available through the Contain Outbreak Management Fund will deliver extended support to communities through 2024. Through a series of projects that have been identified and are included within Appendix B. And those will include a project to support financial inclusion and welfare advice. The grant itself, to note, is time limited, and the projects have to be specific and meet the conditions and the scope of the grant. Thank you, Leader. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Abby. Can I ask anybody if they want any if they've got any questions? No? Thank you. Can I ask somebody to move these recommendations, please? Councillor Wright, thank you.
Thank you, Leader.
Can I ask someone to second it?
Councillor Jeffries to second.
Thank you. Councillor Wright, would you like to speak on this?
Thank you, Leader. I'd like to thank all the officers for the work that's gone into this. We welcome this community support as the cost of living crisis is continuing to bite, and this combined with the migration of benefits to universal credit may lead to households facing additional hardship over the winter, and therefore this new plan is welcome. Thank you very much.
Councillor Jeffries, would you like to speak?
Not at this time, Chair.
Can I just say that I noticed in the survey results the energy issues came out 70%. Food prices were affecting over 63% was a priority, and inflation was 51%. I think this has in the cross-party welfare team, we've really worked hard, really welcomed the support given by the whole group that are actually proposing these and producing this plan. And I think we sent a letter from the last council to try and get the Household Support Fund continued after April 2024, and I just hope it is successful. Speak? No. Councillor, would you like to wind up, please?
Thank you, Chair. Just to say that I'm glad that this funding is continuing, and I'm sure it will help lots of households who are struggling. Thank you.
If it continues. Okay, can I ask all those in favour of these recommendations to raise their hand, please? Thank you. We now go on to item 11, which is the safety valve programme plan, which is going to be moved by the Stuart McKellar, Executive Director of Resources, to present the item. Yes, sorry, I've got a lot to read first. Right, this is a lot of this paperwork, the paperwork that goes with this report is in pink papers because it's confidential at the moment. So our agenda items 11, 12 and 13 also contain confidential information. If council members want to open and ask questions or to comment and move on those pink papers and to involve in their discussions things that are identified in the pink papers, then we will close the meeting and go into confidential session. Is there anybody who wishes to ask a question? This is on agenda item 11, the safety valve programme. Is there anybody who wants to ask a question that is included information from the confidential pages in the report? Then I am happy to leave this open and delighted to do so, because I really don't want to close meetings if we can avoid it. So I ask you to remember not to go into the confidential discussion, or I shall have to close it with an axe. But let's just hope we remain open. Thank you. Can I ask then, please, Stuart McKellar, Executive Director Resources, to present the item?
Thank you, Leader. I'm very happy to. I will hand over part of the introduction to Gráinne Siggins as well to deal with some of the items. So, like many education authorities across England, Bracknell Forest has had a deficit on its school funding for the last few years, and the government has put in place temporary arrangements allowing us to effectively hold that on our balance sheet outside of the normal requirement to have to fund any deficits on an annual basis. But that is only a temporary arrangement, and the government has put in place something called the Safety Valve Intervention Programme, aimed at working with those councils with the highest deficits to make sure that a plan is agreed to bring the spending position back in line with the grants available for special educational needs services, which is funded by the High Needs Block element of the Dedicated School Grant over a period of time. Typically that is around 5 years. Some authorities have extended that a slight amount. At the end of that period, there's also a requirement for the local authority to demonstrate an ability to repay, with some government support, the amount of the deficit that has accrued up until that point. So Bracknell Forest was invited to join the Safety Valve programme back in July this year. We've been working since then to identify options to bring the spend back in line with resources. We've done an awful lot of engagement on that with head teachers, parent carer forums and other stakeholder representatives. We're at the position now where we're presenting for the executive consideration our initial proposal to submit to the Safety Valve team at the Department for Education. If they are broadly comfortable with that, they may give us some feedback around it and we may need to tweak it a little bit, but it will go on to the full council meeting in January with a view to have a final proposal being submitted to the DFE on the 12th of January. Following that, it will go through the DFE's processes, and if they and the Secretary of State are comfortable that our proposals are sustainable and robust, then they will enter into a formal safety valve agreement with us, and that will include details of how that deficit up until the point where it goes back into balance will be funded. But I think possibly the important thing for members to hear tonight is just how the engagement has worked, because it is not a plan that has been produced in isolation. There's been an awful lot of engagement with school leaders and others to get to this point.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart, and thank you, Leader. Just to say, the engagement with parent carers, with education leaders, with a range of officers, school staff, etc., has been extensive over time. And I think we turned a corner when we co-developed and co-designed, co-produced the SEND strategy. So all of the information and the work that we're doing is completely in keeping with the SEND strategy for Bracknell Forest that you agreed as an executive in June this year. So we've continued to work positively and proactively with our education leaders, school staff, our own staff and parent carers and our health colleagues in order to actually take everybody on a journey in relation to the work we needed to do for Safety Valve. So if you play it back, you will have heard in the schools forum in September. So when we advised people that we'd been invited to engage in the Safety Valve programme, there was a lot of unease, some concern. So real opportunity there for engage, to inform, and we committed to everybody to operate in a spirit of transparency and working together to develop as far as we could a plan that was co-produced and they were involved in. So our education leaders have engaged with us, and we cannot thank them enough for just how open and honest and transparent they've been, and welcoming the approach, which has been transparent but challenging at times with some of the things that we have to do. So we've shared with them how we spend our money. We've asked them their views and thoughts about what could be done differently, and we've been able to come up with a co-produced plan, but it has involved a lot of their time and energy. We've also engaged with school chairs of governors, etc., and obviously work through what those initiatives were going to be. So the initiatives that are in the plan and the interventions have been discussed and co-produced with our education leaders and key officers. also our parent care reform have been heavily involved as well as our Department for Education. So it's as co-produced as it could be in the time that we've had available. And we've recognised that ongoing commitment, and we've articulated the ongoing commitment to continue to work with them in the same way as part of workshops, etc. And they've given us that commitment back. Thank you.
Thank you both very much. Can I ask if anyone wants to ask a question? Councillor Bidwell?
Yes, thanks, Leader. So the invite was made on the 23rd of July. Was there any option not to go with the scheme? That's the first question. The second question is, how many other authorities in the Thames Valley area are also in the scheme?
Through you, Leader. And in response to your first question, yes and no. There's always an option to say no, but the implications of doing so would be that we would not have got the support, including financial support from the DFE, to get back to a balanced position, which would have meant that the council, when the temporary funding arrangements to take it off balance sheet would be removed, it would be down to entirely this council to resolve that. So choice, but not really choice. No, we do get access to support from DFE around it. And in terms of other authorities in Thames Valley, in the current tranche that we are part of, which is 5 local authorities going into safety valving or attempting to negotiate a safety valve deal during 23-24, none of the others are in the Thames Valley. There have been others in Thames Valley in previous years. 35 councils have gone through in previous tranches. Our neighbours in Woking are the closest. So we have liaised throughout the process of our safety valve journey with them to get the lessons that they recommended we learned.
Thank you. Anyone else with a question? Councillor?
Thank you. In section 5.5 it says that there is approval to build a school for pupils with autism, and it says the timescales have yet to be approved. I was just wondering if there'd been any developments on that, and when do you think we will see a timescale for that, please? Thank you.
We've been informed that the DFE's capital team is working towards an assumption of a September 2026 opening. They are dealing with lots of other schemes as well, so that's why they are reluctant to give us a firm date. We have, though, been invited after we pushed hard to submit a business case to self-deliver the scheme. So we're working on that at the moment. That will be submitted in early January. We believe that will be the best route to guarantee a particular opening time, so we are looking to pursue that strongly.
Thank you very much. That's really good to hear. Thank you.
Anyone else like to ask a question? Can I just say the paper, Kate, you were invited in July, and I think it's tomorrow or the next day that you've got to put the final recommendations in, or the first recommendations. So can you comment on that, please, because it's been an amazing journey.
So the actual start-up meeting with Department for Education was the 2nd of October, where we fully understood exactly what the requirement was. But on getting the invite, Stuart carefully navigated us to bring in a little bit of additional specialist support to help us to develop it from our side. But in terms of the start-up meeting was the first formal process then for us then engaging quite heavily with our education leaders on the task in hand. We did, as I say, present at Schools Forum in September about what we thought the requirement was going to be, but without the detail and the narrative from the start-up meeting with Department for Education. So it's been incredibly tight between 2nd of October and where we are on the 15th of December submitting the first the draft plan.
Thank you, and thank you to everybody involved, the schools, the parents, the governors and the parent forum, because I think it has been, and I think there is some words in here that said that actually they want to continue with the working groups because they have been so productive. So that's really good news as well. Can I ask for someone to move this recommendation, please? Councillor Bailey. Can I ask someone to second it, please?
Councillor Neil, I'll second.
Thank you. Councillor Bailey, would you like to speak to it, please?
Right. Yes. The consultation process has been as thoroughgoing as it has been extensive. There's no question about that. It's not been an easy thing to consult on, not least because of what's required from our head teachers and schools. But they've all grappled with it purposefully and with an understanding that, you know, this is the only game in town. So we've had to make it work. And I know, again, at first hand, how hard the officer team have the effort they put into this. It's nothing short of amazing, to be honest. It's been done very quickly. I hope we've been thoroughgoing in our constructive critique of the process as it's gone through. I think we have. I've certainly been in touch at regular intervals with the head teacher representatives and parent carers forums and schools forums. So I know, and chairs of governors. So I know that process has been going on, and it's been open and it's been transparent, and sometimes it's been very challenging and difficult. But all the way through, we've purposefully made sure that everything is up for grabs, so people have been they felt able to ask those difficult questions. I won't go through, I've got a series of bullet points here, but I won't go through all of them because Gráinne and Stuart have already covered most of those. We are obliged, in my view, to pursue the safety valve programme because it will help us with our high needs spending effectively, supporting local SEND services to become financially sustainable within the level of grant provided by the DFE within a 5-year period. That first submission, as we've said, is going in on the 15th of December, outlining how we will achieve a sustainable budget. We expect to do this through a mixture of early help to support pupils at an early stage in their education, to stop needs rising, opening new local provision to reduce the reliance on expensive out-of-borough establishments, and refocusing on the council support services offered to schools into the areas they most value. To help meet the requirements of the programme, the council is also proposing to transfer a percentage of funding from other parts of the dedicated schools grant to help fund the high needs block from 1st of April 2024. We've listened carefully to early feedback from head teachers, and within this are proposing a maximum contribution of individual school budgets of 0.5%. Schools have been asked for their views and they've fed back to us. It's been an extensive consultation process. A majority of them, the feedback, have said they will support the safety valve programme, albeit with a degree of reluctance and resignation, but they appreciate the effort that's been put into this and support it. Should the DFE accept our proposals to return to a sustainable position within 5 years, there will be discussions about how to fund the deficit that's accumulated up to that point. This is expected to rise to over £40 million. We expect the DFE will contribute some of the grant towards this, but the majority of the cost will fall to the council. The funding arrangements for this element will not be clear until much later in the process. Finally, once again, can I thank Stuart and Gráinne and Dwayne and all the other officer colleagues who put a phenomenal amount of effort into this. It's not been easy, it's been very challenging, and I applaud them for their effort. Thank you.
The second would like to speak.
Yes, thank you, Leader. And just to recognise that I'm probably not as eloquent as my colleague, Councillor Bailey, but really just to add our hugest thanks to officers. There's been a significant amount of work that has been done under a huge amount of pressure and challenging timescales, and the impact of the Safety Valve programme cannot be understated for us. We do need to recognise the huge ramifications that this has against an already challenging picture and a difficult budget. However, we are not alone, and this is the best deal to allow us to respond to the requirements for Safety Valve. And just to finally add, I cannot praise more highly the level of engagement and co-production that's gone into this position. So thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak? Councillor Gilby?
Thank you, Leader. This is quite clearly tough to swallow. This has been a long-running problem. We've simply had to grapple it by the horns, but I would again emphasise the great work that has been done by officers, by parents, by educators, by all other involved people in preparing what has been, I think we can all agree, the best document we could produce under the circumstances. We simply have to plough on, work with our schools constantly on this issue, as indeed with parents, and really power through what can be made of this situation. So thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? Would you like to wind up, please?
Nothing further to add, Leader.
Thank you. Will all those in favour of these recommendations please raise your hand? Thank you. Item 11, building maintenance, 12 even, sorry, building maintenance and repair service contract. And we welcome Kamei Tor, Assistant Director of Property Services, to present the item. Welcome.
Thank you, Leader. Our current contract for the building maintenance and reactive services expires on the 1st of February 2025. This report is to seek approval for the strategic approach to commence the procurement process to commission a single organisation to provide 24-hour building maintenance reactive services for council corporate buildings and for the schools that buy in for under a service level agreement. The proposed term of the contract is a 10-year contract with an initial period of 5 years and then a further 3 + 2 years based on performance with a projected value set out in the papers. The timeline for the procurement is set out in your report, with a contract award to be awarded to the successful contractor during late September 2024. The evaluation criteria is 60/40. Cost and quality as per the council standard procurement approach. We have procured this contract on 2 occasions previously, and we have found that the evaluation criteria is the correct approach for this contract. In summing up, this report is seeking approval of the recommendations set out in the report. Happy to take any questions. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. If there's any questions, can I remind you, please, that some of the paper contains exempt information, so please do not ask those questions that relate to that. Otherwise, I'll have to close the meeting and go into confidential session. So is there anyone who wants to ask a question that is actually not on the confidential information? Thank you. Can I ask someone to move these recommendations then, please?
Councillor Neal, happy to move.
Thank you. Anyone to second it?
Councillor Jeffries to second.
Thank you. Would the mover like to speak, please?
Just to say thank you to Kamei for bringing the report to us this evening, and just to reiterate everything that Kamei said in terms of the requirements that that we need to cover with this.
Seconder like to speak?
I'd like to reserve, Leader.
Can I just say that I found it interesting to look at the alternative options and to see why they were disregarded as well, which is one of them was partnership with neighbouring authorities, which I thought would be quite exciting, but there you go, it was not. This is the best way forward. Anyone else want to speak? Would you like to sum up?
Nothing further to add, Leader. Thank you.
Will all those in favour of the recommendations please raise your hand? Thank you. Can we then move on to agenda item 12, which is neutral agency vendor and specialist recruitment provider procurement? An easy.
13.
Oh, okay. No, 30. So it trips off your tongue, that. Neutral agency vendor and specialist recruitment provider procurement. Can I invite Stuart McKellar, Executive Director of Resources, to present the item, please?
Thank you, Leader. I won't attempt to repeat it again. So, like most local authorities, in fact, I think all local authorities, the council is dependent on the services of agency staff to supplement our permanent workforce to deliver services. So we have had in place for a number of years an arrangement through an organisation called Matrix, who have helped us with the recruitment. So they work as an umbrella agency through which a number of others go through. However, the feedback that we had when we engaged with managers around when we looked to re-procure the contract, which we have to do by April 2025. How well have it worked? It's worked well in many areas, but there are some specialist areas within the council where the agencies just will not go through the metrics arrangements. So we're recognising that and looking to procure a broader range of options rather than just a single organisation when we go out to procure. So it's a slightly different approach for the next stage in the process. We will still need to have some arrangements with agency workers, so therefore we're trying to bring them all into the fold to help ensure we get the maximum value from one of the arrangements.
Thank you. Can I ask if anyone's got any questions? None? Can I ask for someone to move the recommendations?
Councillor Neil, happy to move the recommendations.
Can I ask for a seconder, please? Councillor Bidwell? Yeah? Yes. Councillor Neil, would you like to move the recommendations, please?
Yep, I would just like to add that we recognise reliance on agency for our workforce is a balancing act, and whilst we cannot do without them, we do need to ensure value for money in our services.
Yeah, I reiterate what Councillor Neil says. It's really, really important to ensure, as we rely on agency staff, that we get the best vehicle for doing that. So I fully support this, and I think it's an excellent move and look forward to getting a better service. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? Would the mover like to wind up?
Just to ask my colleagues to support this recommendation this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favour of these recommendations, please. Thank you. And I now declare the meeting ended. Can